Hello everyone, this is Angela McEwan and Floris van der Bult from Clifford Chance. We are looking forward to seeing you at the YAR Congress, and in advance of that would like to briefly update you on some of the key trends we are seeing in the important area of ESG. There are a number of factors which mean that this is going to be a very significant year in terms of ESG developments. The new Biden administration, COP26, a renewed push from China on climate change, and a focus on how we build back better post-COVID-19 means that 2021 is going to be the biggest year yet for ESG. We will highlight some of the key trends to watch.
Angela, what progress can we hope to see amongst world leaders this year in relation to climate change?
Yes, thank you, Floris. In November this year, the 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference, known as COP26, will be held in Glasgow. This has been described by the US climate envoy, John Kerry, as the last best chance to avert environmental disaster. And with the US back in the fold, having rejoined the Paris Agreement, COP26 may make significant progress. US re-engagement in international climate action is likely to encourage greater international carbon reduction and climate finance efforts at the COP26 meeting. And it may also help unblock continuing impasses on the development of a carbon market mechanism. The outcome of that conference is, of course, still to be seen, but at the very least, more governments will need to commit to tougher emission cuts by 2030 and plan to reach net zero emissions by 2050.
So what are you expecting to be seeing, or maybe already are seeing, in terms of legislation and regulation, Angela?
Yes, thank you, Floris. So as part of the focus on ESG, we will also be seeing increased regulation and legislation to deal with ESG issues across many jurisdictions. And the EU is really a first mover with its proposals for mandatory environmental and human rights due diligence requirements. And that's something we can expect to see further details on in the coming months. And in addition to this, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulations aim to increase transparency and prevent greenwashing. It introduces harmonised disclosure obligations on asset managers and other types of financial institutions. And linked with all of this is the Sustainable Finance Taxonomy Regulation, which applies from January next year and provides an EU-wide dictionary of environmentally sustainable activities. And as well as, of course, all of this focus on environmental issues, an increasingly important feature of ESG discussions is in relation to the social element, so the S in the ESG. This is becoming a key issue for boardrooms. Could you tell us, Floris, more about what you're seeing in relation to that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Angela. So social risks, as you rightfully say, the S in ESG are rapidly becoming a crucial issue for boardrooms. And they include, for example, business and human rights, corruption, consumer protection, and labor and employment issues such as diversity and inclusion, pay, and working conditions. And the focus on these areas is likely to intensify after COVID. We're already seeing a strategic shift from a reactive approach to dealing with these issues, such as diversity and inclusion, to a proactive one.
Thanks, Floris. And has COVID-19 played any role in these developments?
Yes, it has, because COVID-19 is a catalyst for change, and we expect to see a growing number of companies overhaul their work-life balance approach or showcase the human rights, compliance, and sustainability of their supply chain. But this is not without risk, because what happens to the board and the business if they are unable to achieve these goals and promises? To avoid being accused of social washing, they will want to be sure that hard regulatory requirements and disclosure obligations are met and softer cultural principles are observed. Increased risks include whistleblowers highlighting a mismatch between image and reality, and regulatory, investor, or consumer scrutiny if company disclosures about ESG do not match with the reality. And governments and companies have said that after COVID, they intend to build back better and learn lessons from the pandemic. But what does that mean in practice? And many businesses demonstrated flexibility. L'Oréal, for example, paid small and medium-sized suppliers early to help them weather the crisis. We expect a shift in corporate culture to address issues of employment engagement, employee mental health, and diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Floris. And how does ESG relate to the increasing impact of tech in our day-to-day lives?
Thank you, Angela. And that's actually very topical. Just look at the carbon footprint of Bitcoin and the cultural and ethical issues relating to artificial intelligence. And recently, the European Commission published its proposal for an EU regulation on artificial intelligence. Social and HR topics, such as the selection and recruitment of employees by using artificial intelligence, will be under much higher scrutiny than before. And also the access, collection and processing of personal data and in particular sensitive personal data is a big concern to people. And we expect to see tech firms being held to greater account on ESG issues and competing to demonstrate that they have these aspects under control. A further challenge to companies is in relation to ESG-focused litigation and shareholder activism. What have we been seeing in relation to that, Angela?
Thank you, Floris. Yes, indeed, activist shareholders and NGOs are targeting businesses and increasingly using litigation in efforts to combat climate change and protect human rights. And we've already really seen this in the recent judgment against Shell, which was ordered by the District Court of The Hague to reduce its CO2 emissions by 45% by 2030 as compared with its 2019 levels. This is the first time that a court has ordered a company to reduce CO2 emissions, and the judgment may have significant consequences for other companies with a link to the Netherlands and which have significant CO2 emissions. And in addition to this, and globally, investors are also beginning to pursue large-scale group claims against companies for inaccurately representing their ESG credentials. And that's particularly the case in the US, and that's a trend that is likely to spread to Europe and Asia. And the world's biggest asset management company, BlackRock, for example, says that it will support more activist shareholder resolutions on climate and social issues to put pressure on companies to change their behaviour.
That all sounds very interesting, Angela, and thank you. And it's food for thought for boards and for general councils. But I'm sure that ESG also comes with lots of opportunities for businesses.
Thanks, Floris. And yes, that's absolutely right. Of course, while companies will certainly be facing increased challenges on the ESG front, it is also important to recognise that the developments around ESG also present a lot of opportunities to companies, including in relation to the renewed focus on the development of renewables and other energy technologies, for example. And there's also been a rise in the types of finance products available, again reflecting developments around ESG issues. So there's been a rapid increase in products such as green loans, green bonds, and sustainability-linked loans and bonds, for example. And I think we can expect to see that continuing.
We expect to see increasing focus on the topics mentioned in the coming months. If you would like more information in relation to any of these topics, please do not hesitate to contact either of us. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you at the GCN Jaarcongres.
Thank you.